5 years ago, Labour MP David Lammy published a review into how black, Asian and other ethnic minority people are treated in prisons. Now, one example for you, it found that black prisoners are more likely than any other ethnic group to have force used against them. But it's now been found that since then, there's been almost no progress in making improvements in some of those areas. Julian Drucker joins us in the studio for a bit more on this. Julian, good to see you here, but why has there been no progress made? What do we know?
Hi, Dan. Yeah, this was a huge piece of work commissioned by David Lammy. Sorry, he did the work, but David Cameron, the then Prime Minister, commissioned it. It exposed racial bias in the criminal justice system. Prisons were part of that. He wrote some recommendations, and one charity has gone through it and done some analysis and found that there has been very little progress. So let's look at what Mr Lammy suggested. He made 14 main recommendations in his review in 2017. Now, out of this, 6 of them have been rated red in this new analysis. They've used traffic light colours. Okay. They're saying no progress has been made at all to meet them. They're talking about things like regular stats on the use of force in prison. It does mean that 8 are rated amber. There has been some progress, things like making prison staff a bit more diverse. So it does mean 0 recommendations are rated green. That means that 0 has been achieved, essentially, is what they're saying. On that use of force in prison that I just mentioned, the only official stats suggest that black prisoners are more likely to be on the receiving end of being restrained, etc.
You're much more likely, for example, to have something called pava spray, which is pepper spray, which officers have only had for the last 2 or 3 years. You're much more likely to have that used against you if you are young and black. But that's all we know. We don't know what the trend is, and we certainly don't know what the prison service is doing as a result of that bit of data.
OK, that's a Prison Reform Trust. And you've also been speaking to one former prisoner about his experiences.
Yes, Femi Larie Adekimi. He was convicted of fraud and given a 20-month sentence. He said he tried to keep his head down when he was in prison, but he was restrained once, he said, when he was prevented from trying to call his family at home. And he told me, he says he felt singled out.
I was on the receiving end of use of force, which I felt was unnecessary. All it needed was a conversation or an explanation. And I even perceived that other officers on the wing didn't agree with the use of force in that instance. And I can't imagine why it was used against me, other than that I was a black prisoner, because I was a compliant prisoner.
There was a recent report from His Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons. It highlighted examples of race discrimination in jails. The government's response contained further initiatives then. It says today its work is ongoing, and it says it has done more than other governments in tackling this sort of thing.